On this episode, we talk to Stu McDonald from travelfish.org about the ins and outs of travel insurance and why it might be more complicated than you think.
So whether you're a long-term expat like us, a first-time visitor to Bangkok, or a Thai national trying to better understand us crazy Farang, we hope you enjoy this and the over 100 other episodes of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who started sweating in Bangkok in 2001 and hasn't stopped sweating since.
And I am Ivo Terra, an American expat living full-time in Bangkok since the beginning of 2016. Thanks for joining us here in the Big Mango.
So as always, we start the episode with a big thanks to our supporters on Patreon who help us keep the show going and free of annoying ads. And as is the custom for supporters of the show shout-out level, we would like to say thank you to one of our supporters.
Indeed, we do, Greg, and this week it's Mr. Tanner Watch.
That's right, Tanner Watch, which sounds like a cool new Apple product, but is in fact a real guy. Now, it turns out Tanner is a fellow Canadian, just like me, from a town I know well called Regina, actually a city called Regina.
You said Regina.
Americans always laugh when they hear Regina. In the lovely province of Saskatchewan. Is that funny for you?
No, I can't even pronounce that.
The thing about Saskatchewan is it's got kind of a reputation for being a boring farm province. And in fact, one of the phrases I heard growing up next door in Alberta was that Saskatchewan has a population of 1 million people, but only 4 last names. Well, I did some research on Ancestry.com and I looked up the name Watch, and guess what? It's not a common name. I also took a look at Tanner's photo on Facebook. Evo, this is one handsome dude. I'm not scared to say it. Not afraid. So Tanner, this is your calling, my friend. You are the new blood Saskatchewan needs. Get out there and spread the Watch name far and wide. You are the last best hope to stop us dumbass Albertans from telling jokes about Saskatchewan. We believe in you, buddy, and we will be very happy if you name 2 of your dozens of future children, Greg and Evo.
Yes, or name 3 of them. One Greg, one Evo, and one Evo Greg would be even better.
So before we jump into the nitty-gritty of travel insurance, what do you say, Evo? There was a story that came out about a month ago about how the police will no longer be setting up traffic checkpoints. And that was eye-opening news, because that, to my point of view, is one of the big problems with Bangkok traffic, is that the police are trying to make it better, but actually making it worse.
Yeah, you're right. It was a story that broke, and then right after the story broke, I left the country for almost a month. So I was looking forward to driving again and not have to worry about random checkpoints where the only reason they exist is to see if they can shake someone down for money. That's not me just grousing. That's the reality of what the traffic checkpoints are. So I was quite happy when Bangkok's new head of Metro Police, or whatever his title was, said that he said 2 things. One, they're doing away with them, but the reason they're doing away with them is, he said, it doesn't appear to be having any impact whatsoever on Bangkok's traffic. Huh.
Yeah, it's almost as if everyone else has been right all along.
I know, it's so bizarre. So they're still going to do traffic checkpoints for DUI, which is fine. Continue to do that. I have no problem with that whatsoever. They're also going to have checkpoints where they still might be checking for people that don't have helmets on, so some safety type issues. Fine. Once again, I've got no problems. But now they will no longer be randomly setting up, and by randomly I mean right underneath Sapan Taksim Bridge every other day, just pulling people over randomly to see what they've got. They might actually get out there and start enforcing things like people parked on the side of the road in a red and white zone, which is zoned for no parking, or running red lights nonstop, or illegal turns, or other sorts of things which you might expect a traffic cop to do. So yeah, I'm a little excited about those things. I haven't actually been out much since I got back, so I will update you and the fine listeners out there to see if I notice any difference in either people's behaviors or the random cop.
Yeah, you would on a bike more than I would in a car, because cars, if we do get pulled over, it's rarely for, like, I don't know, they just pulled my motorbikes over way more often than they do cars.
We're easy.
But I'm all for this, because I cannot stress enough how much I think that enforcement would really clean up the traffic in Bangkok. And I'm not a law student, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a policeman, I'm not some traffic expert, but it's just if everyone just tried to, stick to the rules, then I think it would probably be a lot better. Now this flies in the face of what you and I were talking about in a recent episode where we said you can't obey all the rules in Bangkok and still drive normally. But like you said, like right outside my condo, there's a huge long strip of no parking zones, and everyone is always parked there, and it totally screws up my soy.
Yep.
So I mean, just start enforcing it, and
we'll see. And while we may not be police, what we are is two Farangs who think we know how Thailand should run better.
Oh, yeah.
So we're the only ones in Thailand, by the way, that think this, where everybody else goes along with it. But
why
it's
doesn't
just us.
it work the way it does back home? Anyway, we'll see what happens.
In case you missed the joint, the commentary there, go to Thai Visa Forum where you can join the thousands of other grumpy Farangs who continue to say, if this only functioned like it did in my country. But yes, good news anyhow.
Can't say I disagree with him. I just never say it out loud. Anyway, well, actually, speaking of traffic, now we've been talking about Evo's continuing motorbike adventures on recent shows, and it's something that's always kind of in your peripheral when you're living in Southeast Asia, because over here, one of the most commonly seen stories is another dumbass foreigner renting a motorbike and crashing it, and then finding out their insurance doesn't cover their injuries. So we wanted to talk a little bit about this topic. Is this type of thing widespread and common as it seems? Why does insurance work that way? Should you have the same insurance when you're traveling as you do when you settle down for a few months? And other questions like this. So to talk about this, I called up an old friend, Stuart McDonald, who runs travelfish.org. Now, if you don't know Travelfish, it's become what Lonely Planet used to be, which is a vital resource on all things Southeast Asia. So Stu has traveled further and more often than just about anyone I know, and he's got some great insights into the whole topic. And he was grateful enough to join me online from his house in Bali. So here is my conversation with Stu about some of the things you need to think about when you're buying travel insurance. So Stuart, welcome back to the Bangkok podcast. The last time you were on the show was in 2011, in episode 64 of season 1. So it's good to have you back on in 2017, 6 years later.
Thank you, Greg. Time flies.
Yeah, sure does. Now, I wanted to talk to someone on this episode about insurance and having insurance when you travel and having insurance when you're merely an expat. And I thought, who could I talk to that travels a lot, who has traveled a lot, and who travels probably more than anyone I know? And you're probably one of the top 5 people that I know who travels all over the place. So yeah. I thought I'd like to have you on to talk about that. So one of the things that sort of kicked off this thinking about having a show on insurance was that almost every week now I'm seeing newspaper stories out of Phuket and Bali and Vietnam and Cambodia about some 22-year-old kid who comes over here, jumps on a motorcycle without having hardly any experience riding one, and then rides straight into the back of a truck and doesn't have insurance and has to start a GoFundMe campaign to pay for the pins in their legs or brain reconstructive surgery if they're lucky.
Sure.
So can you talk about how often you see that and sort of why that trend exists?
Well, I think it's something that's always happened. I think not everybody travels with travel insurance, obviously. It's certainly a good idea to have some kind of insurance coverage for when you are traveling. But I guess with the social media and everything nowadays, it's, somebody does something stupid like riding without a helmet and having an accident or whatever. It's much easier for half the world to find that out than, say, 15 or 20 years ago when people were still doing the exact same thing, but it wasn't getting magnified across the internet in quite the same way. And, if you look at situations like platforms like GoFundMe, while people give them a bit of a flogging over this kind of thing, I think they actually do serve a useful purpose. If sometimes there are cases where people have had insurance, but insurance hasn't paid out over, any number of reasons that we can get into later. And And so I think it's great that people who are in a difficult situation are able to avail themselves of a platform like GoFundMe to try and fill the gap. And yeah, of course, you've also got the people who have just chosen not to take insurance, and then they've found themselves in a situation where it probably would have been a good idea to have had insurance. So, I mean, everybody makes mistakes, and I don't think anyone's sort of being forced to contribute to these kind of campaigns. But if you want to help somebody out who obviously has made a mistake, then there's an easy way to do it. And again, social media can magnify that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it can be like it can be a force for good as well as sort of maybe overblowing the situation that has always existed.
Exactly. I mean, when I first traveled to Thailand, I learnt to ride a motorbike in a car park in Phuket. You know, I certainly didn't have. I think I had insurance, but I certainly didn't have a scooter license. I mean, another traveller rented a bike for me. I rode around the car park for 15 minutes, and within a few months, had done about 30,000 kilometres on one. So, don't do this at home, kids. But I mean, I was very lucky, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I get why people do it. It's when you're traveling, there's nothing like jumping on a motorbike. It gives you an incredible amount of freedom, and you can go wherever you want to go, and all that kind of thing. But wear a helmet. Obviously, having a license is useful. And having insurance. I mean, all three of those things are very interrelated now. You know, if you have an accident and you don't have a license and you're not wearing a helmet, it doesn't really matter if you had insurance because they're not going to pay anyway.
Yeah, now that brings us to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is the fine print.
Yeah.
And it's so important to understand that because, for instance, every morning when I go to work, I jump on the back of a motorcycle taxi and I ride 15 seconds to the BTS station. And I hardly ever wear a helmet because I'm hardly ever offered one and I hardly ever ask for one.
Right.
And I know that even though I have great insurance, if I get in an accident, it's going to be void because I was breaking the law. I wasn't wearing a helmet. And if you're a traveler and you rent a motorcycle in Thailand, you want to drive around from A to B, and you don't have a locally recognized motorcycle license, you're screwed. Your insurance is not going to recognize anything.
I think it's important before you get into the nitty-gritty to say that no two travel insurance or expat insurance policies are the same. So what one insurer might say, forget about it, we're not covering you. Another one might be more amenable to it. So like you say, it's very important to read the small print. But you do need to read the small print, but really a lot of it is common sense. I mean, if you were back home in Canada and you got in a car without a license and drove around the corner drunk and ran into a telegraph pole and smashed the car, you probably wouldn't be insured.
Probably not.
And you probably wouldn't do it either. Like I know the majority of people I meet traveling are motorcycling or driving here without a license. None of them would do that in their home country. So there's this thing going on in people's heads where, oh, I'm on holidays, it's all free and easy there, I don't really need to worry about it. And 9 times out of 10, you don't have to worry about it because you won't have an accident and you won't get pulled over, and so it's not a big deal. But it's that classic phrase of, nothing was going wrong until it did.
Right,
you know?
Right.
So that's sort of something you've got to keep in mind. Generally speaking, in Southeast Asia, you need to be licensed for the kind of vehicle that you're driving or riding. So for an Australian in Thailand, for example, if you're riding a motorbike, you need to have an Australian license endorsed for motorbiking. And on top of that, you need to have an international driving permit that's endorsed for motorbike riding. Now, if you don't have those, then most likely your insurance won't cover you. It varies depending on country to country, But generally, the insurer says you need to be legally, you need to be, whatever you're doing, it has to be legal in the country you're doing it in. And just one more thing on this, Vietnam in particular is a difficult case because depending on what source you read, Vietnam doesn't recognize international licenses and doesn't recognize international driving permits.
Oh, interesting.
To get a Vietnamese license, you need to be in the country for a good deal longer than your typical tourist. So no casual tourist will have a Vietnamese license either. So that means while one of the really sexy appeals of Vietnam is motorbiking, just about everybody who's doing it there doesn't have insurance cover for it.
Right, right. And that's something that I came across myself last year. My sister visited, and we made some pretty quick plans to head up to Chiang Rai and rent a motorbike and drive up into the hills on the border of Burma, which is one of my favorite areas. It's beautiful. But only after it was done did I realize, like, hey, I have a Thai license, but I'm not licensed to ride a motorcycle. And I didn't have time to get one. So what do people do when they come to Asia, whether it's Vietnam or Thailand or Indonesia, and getting a license is just not an option? Should they just not rent a motorcycle?
Well, I mean, what we say at Travelfish is make the effort, get a license in your home country. I mean, aside from anything else, it means that you're a safer driver, you know?
Yeah.
Getting a license isn't just a process so you can tick a box on an insurance form.
Yeah, that's a very good way to look at it. Yeah.
Well, it's also to illustrate that you do actually know how to ride a motorbike. And, you know, I've done, I don't know, probably 200,000 kilometers on motorbikes. So I've got a fair handle on how one works and how to drive it and everything. But I certainly didn't at the start. And the simple stuff is, get on it and you go. But being taught how to ride one properly, it is a useful skill. And so what we tell people is make the effort. You know you're going to be coming to Indonesia or Thailand 6 months from now. Go and get your license. It's going to revolve around road laws that you're familiar with. The test is going to be in a language that you can actually speak, and most likely the road traffic is going to be far saner than what it is here or in Thailand or Cambodia or whatever. So just sort it out, get it done there. Then you don't have to worry about it. It's safer for you. It is safer for everybody else on the street, which is something that people tend not to really consider. It's very much, oh my God, like so-and-so had a bike accident and their insurance isn't going to cover because they didn't have a license. The insurers are bastards. It's like, well, what about all the pedestrians that are walking around the street while these tourists who barely know how to ride a motorbike are scooting around? You know, it's a personal responsibility issue wrapped up in this as well.
Yeah. I was on Koh Lanta last month with my wife and son, and we wanted to get a little motorcycle to putz around our little neighborhood, and I was just like, no, there's too many people here. There's too many tourists here that are obviously not practiced enough. And as I said that, some guy pulled up to the 7-Eleven we were at, and his knees were all scraped up and bloody and stuff. I was like, you see. So even though we would have been fine, I don't trust that everyone else is going to be fine.
Well, I mean that's the thing. Like, I don't ride a motorbike in Bali. I just don't feel that it's safe. Partly because the traffic's chaotic and everything, but there's also a lot of novice tourist drivers here, lots of drunks, all that kind of stuff. So I just don't go there. But if I'm on another island, like out east, where there's far less traffic and all that kind of thing, then I'm quite happy to jump on a scooter and go around. So, I mean, it's also sort of, you know, being aware of your surroundings and that kind of thing. But 9 times out of 10, if you don't drink stoned or drunk or whatever, you're wearing a helmet, you're wearing decent clothes, you're wearing shoes. I see lots of people who motorbike barefoot. And it's just like, hello? I mean, all of those kind of things. There's a lot of simple things you can do that are going to help you survive a minor scooter accident, even if insurance doesn't cover you.
Yeah, and like you said, it's also common sense, and it's not always motorcycles. You hear stories of
Exactly.
people falling off waterfalls because they climbed up too far, or ignoring the red flags when they say don't go swimming. It's just an endless series
Yeah.
of common sense. Common sense could avoid 90% of these problems.
Yes, but I think the other thing is that when you're looking at travel insurance or any kind of insurance through the glasses of somebody saying, oh, they're drunk or they're not wearing a helmet or like covering all these like really insurance for stupidity, you're ignoring the other area where insurance is really important for, which is for accidents that are really none of your fault.
Right.
Where you really need insurance, and that's the kind of thing where it can be tremendously useful. We went down to Australia a year and a half ago now, and the morning that we were supposed to be flying back, so this is me, my wife, and my two kids. I woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I thought I was having a heart attack. And so I woke my wife, and we ended up going to hospital, and my blood pressure was, like heart of an alligator kind of thing. And so they took me straight in. They kept me in hospital one night, and I was in there one night and 2 full days, and the bill was $23,000.
Jesus.
They ended up. It wasn't a heart attack. It was I had some other like an infection, which they ended up just treating with Nurofen.
Oh God.
But the travel insurance policy cost, it was with World Nomads, and it cost about, I can't remember now, for the family, it was like $200 or something like that, And so with insurance, you've got a certain peace of mind where if something happens that isn't your fault, and this wasn't my fault, I could probably do more exercise, but it wasn't related to that, that they stepped in and they looked after me, and we didn't have to worry about it. And I think that's the peace of mind that you want with travel insurance. The best kind of travel insurance is the insurance you don't need to use.
You always want travel insurance to be a waste of money, the way I see it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Yeah.
And you brought up an interesting point too. It's not always your fault, and when you're traveling in Southeast Asia, the infrastructure is not up to scratch in a lot of the places that you go to. Like the sewer grate you step on could be rusted through, and you could fall down, or the you get into a shower and the electricity isn't grounded properly, or something like that. Like there's a million things over here that are not up to the standard that we expect back home, and you need to be ready for that.
Exactly. I think you need a lot of balance. Like you need to watch where you're walking. In a way that you probably don't need to at home, because there's depending on where home is, of course, but in my case in Australia, everything is so orderly and so safe that you've really got to try quite hard to injure yourself just walking outside. I mean, I could injure myself here effortlessly within about 30 meters of my house,
Yeah.
There's we call them granny traps, but they're everywhere. There's problems. So you do need to be wary of that kind of thing.
Now let's talk. Let's wrap things up and talk about the difference between getting insurance as a traveler and getting insurance as an expat. Because when I came over to Thailand, I was traveling. The plan was to travel around for 4 months, so I bought an insurance policy that covered me for 6 months. I ended up staying for 16 years, and there was a big chunk of time there where my insurance lapsed, and I was like, I'll worry about it later. I just didn't bother with it, even though technically I was an expat I was not traveling anymore. I was living in one place and I was working. So what's the difference between getting insurance when you're traveling and getting insurance when you're merely living overseas?
Well, I think again, like what I was saying earlier, there's a lot of variance between different policies and small print and all that kind of thing. But if you generally boil it down, travel insurance is for traveling. So travel insurance generally doesn't cover you for the country that you live in. So if you're registered as a Thailand resident, for example, and you're going to Mae Hong Son for a holiday, then travel insurance probably won't cover you. Okay. If you're going to Phnom Penh or Saigon or something like that, you'll be covered because you're traveling internationally. But generally, it doesn't cover you for travel within the country that you're living in.
Okay.
And travel insurance is all about fixing you up in some other country, then getting you back home. And when you're back home, your normal insurance policy or health coverage or whatever takes over. And this is a really important point of confusion with a lot of travelers where they think, oh, if I have some major health drama in Indonesia, then my travel insurance policy is going to take me home and look after me forever. And that's not how it works. Travel insurance is there to get you home, but the assumption is that back at home you have other insurance which is going to look after you. So that's something that a lot of people don't realize. And as far as expat insurance is concerned, it's kind of both, because it will cover you for the country that you live in, and also for travel outside. I mean, when I travel, I double up. So we have an expat coverage that covers me for travel in Indonesia. But when I travel, but it has a very high premium. So when I travel outside, I get not regular travel insurance as well.
Okay.
But expat insurance will have things like air evacuation and that kind of thing, which is important depending on where you live. Obviously, it's not an issue if you live in Bangkok. You've got some of the best hospitals in the world there. But if you're in Indonesia, for example, I mean, I don't want to go into a hospital here even for a broken leg. I mean, take me to Singapore, please. So that's what you have. That's important in your expat coverage. But I mean, it varies depending on needs. I mean, everybody who has switched from being a backpacker to a resident, like, I mean, Sam and I did the same as you. You end up with a long spell there where you sort of fall between the cracks and didn't really have anything proper. But it makes sense to have local coverage as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess the bottom line of all of this is that no two insurance policies are the same, and you should read the fine print and be familiar of the laws and the regulations and the infrastructure of the countries you're in and the countries that you're going to be going to.
Yeah, I think we have on Travelfish we have a section about what to pack, and so and so it's stuff like a wallet and your passport and all that kind of thing. But at the top we say pack your brain, and it sounds ridiculous, but I mean the number of times you talk to people who are in an inconvenient, unfortunate situation, and they'll say, "I don't know what I was thinking," and it's like, "Yeah, no, neither do I," but. People tend to often travel and they just don't think things through. And it's like, my God, how did I end up in this situation? So, yeah, packing your brain, using your common sense, wearing a helmet, not driving drunk, all that typical kind of stuff is a prudent way to, stay alive.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Pack your brain. Pack your brain, folks. Get that on a t-shirt and sell them. Well, thanks a lot, Stu. That was really interesting. It's good to talk to someone who's had more experience with traveling than the most people have. So again, thanks for coming on the show. Pack your brain and travel safe.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Great information, and I'm glad you had that conversation with Stu, because since I'm a licensed Thai driver with insurance in Thailand, I don't fall into the silly farang who's doing things the wrong way. So it's good to hear from somebody, not just me, but some other person with some additional gravitas behind his voice on the importance of doing the smart things, not just for driving, as we heard about, but also for traveling and living in the country, all things that Stu covered.
Yeah, and take it from a guy like if you've read some of the articles on Travelfish and talked to him on occasion, he's had some adventures. Not to mention living in one of the most volcanically active areas on the entire planet. So he knows a little bit about insurance and the ins and outs of making sure that you're taken care of. So yeah, again, thanks for coming on, Stu. We really appreciated that. That was interesting, and I never really thought about, like, a lot of people travel and then they just do what I did, which is just sort of stop and not travel anymore. And then you become an expat. And there's not like a form you have to fill out. It's just one day you're an expat.
Yeah.
And your existing insurance might need to be updated, which is not something that I'd never thought about. So it was interesting hearing something like that.
Hey, speaking of things that need to be updated, it's that time once again, kids, for everyone's favorite segment of the show, Love, Loathe, or Leave, where we look at one minor aspect of living in Bangkok and find out if it's something that the two of us love about living in Bangkok, something we loathe about living in the expat life kingdom that we are in, or if it's something we hate so much that it just might cause us to leave one of these days. Greg, I have it this week, my friend, and I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time because here's the reality. I hate Thailand's coins.
What?
I abhor the coins of Thailand. Now, I will say this. Coins in most countries are terrible if you are not from that country. But I've lived here now for 2 years, and so I know the coins. I know what they are, and I still hate them. I just flat out hate them. What do you think about the coins in Thailand?
I don't. Why do I think about coins in Thailand?
Here, let me tell you why I hate them so, since you're clearly uneducated into what's wrong with these terrible, terrible coins. First off, and I'm not going to talk about the satang coins, right? The little quarter baht and half baht things that you can't get rid of. Once you've been given them, all you can do is melt them down for the copper they contain.
I do hate those things.
Those are kind of pointless. But I'm talking about the ones that I think drive me bad. It's not the 10 baht coin, which we discovered what we talked about being a dime baht recently on a program. That one I don't mind because it's clearly a 10 baht coin. It looks like a toonie. It looks like a €2 coin. In fact, I heard tell that it's actually of the size and weight. So if you take your 10 baht coins back to Europe with you, some of the machines that take a €2 coin may mistakenly think a 10 baht coin is a €2 coin.
That's a pretty good exchange rate.
That's the exchange rate you want, my friend. So definitely try that. But the ones that I think drive me the baddie, and it's not the nickel baht coin. The 5 baht coin is okay. It's got this little, I don't know how many. I'm looking at one right now. How many different bevels around the outside of it? But it's clearly a 5 baht coin. No, the ones I hate are the 1 baht and the 2 baht. And the reason I hate the 1 baht coin by itself is that there are several different kinds of 1 baht coins. There are the ones that will work in the machines and then ones that will not work in the machines. And I don't know what the difference is. I can't tell if it's new. I can't tell if it's old. I have no idea. And the 2 baht coin, I hate it because is it gold or is it silver? It kind of all depends. But here's what the real kicker is, Greg. The real kicker is a 1 baht coin is 20 millimeters. All right? If you look at the diameter of that is 20 millimeters. The 2 baht coin is 21.75. 1.75 millimeters. That's nothing. That's like a fingernail width difference between these two things. And they look identical. They look identical. They feel identical.
You've put as much thought into this as I have into who's a better captain, Kirk or Picard.
Well, don't get me started on that. But nonetheless, it's just...
Well, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. When the 2 baht coin came out, I can't remember when it was, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it was originally the exact same size as a 1 baht coin. The only difference was that it had a 2 on it instead of a 1. And then after enough people vented their frustrations, they finally made the 2 baht coin a little bit bigger. So it's much better than it used to be.
Slightly larger. Oh, just the friggin' worst. And again, I hate coins in most countries. I had a special loathe in my craw here for the 1 baht and the 2 baht coins of Thailand. Ugh.
I never gave much thought to it. I hate the satang coins. I literally throw them in the garbage when I get them because they're worthless. And I actually wrote a blog post on this. I asked people their opinions on Twitter, and I wrote a blog post about what other people do with satang coins. But I don't have an opinion either way. I don't love them coins because they're heavy and they wear out your pockets. But I don't loathe them no more than I do any other type of currency.
Stick with me, son. I will teach you how to loathe the coins in your pocket.
We're all going to be going credit cards and everything plastic soon anyway, so what's the point?
Thailand 4.0.
Yeah, baby. Well, I don't love, loathe, or leave, or I'm not going to leave because of it. Can I give this one a solid meh?
Okay, sure. We can have an extra meh category for you. So, hey, before we take off, a quick note again for our patrons out there. Thank you guys very much, and gals very much, for your continued support. To date, right now, Greg and I have kicked out. I think it's now 19 exclusive full-length episodes just for you guys, like the one we talked about earlier today, which was all about bad parenting skills. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was vacation time, right? That was what it was. Sorry.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that in there, and how I single-handedly tried to crash the American economy with my changes of vacation time. So lots of good stuff going, and we really enjoy putting those kind of more free-form, fun, less specifically focused, and more of a let's just see where the conversation happens shows together. So we appreciate your support, and as long as that continues, we'll continue producing additional episodes for you guys. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I like having a little bit of leeway in terms of what we talk about in our language, and it's less formal and less stuffy.
You like me not having to crack the whip on you, saying, "Can you get to the point again?" Let's go.
Yeah,
Right.
That's how it works. You telling me to get to the point.
Crack.
Well, if you would like for us to say nice things about you on the show, or you just want to get the show early, as well as access to some special patron-only bonus content and swag, head to patreon.com/Bangkok Podcast and lend us your support. We really do appreciate every little bit. And thanks to you for listening to the Bangkok Podcast. If you have something on your mind, or you just want to drop us a line to say hello, how you doing, please leave a comment on bangkokpodcast.com, or you can reach out directly to me on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg.
Or you can send us a message either on Facebook or on Twitter or Line. Everywhere we are simply Bangkok Podcast. We're very good at responding to the comments that you leave for us, the questions that you might have, and also the heaps of praise that you pass along to us. Thank you very much for that. For Greg Jorgensen, I am Evo Terra. We'll be back next week with more stories of our lives lived in the City of Angels, right here on the Bangkok Podcast. Chok di krap.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a guy who sewed a...
What?
Ridiculous. Let me start it
Yeah.
right from the beginning.